All right, I believe you can see my screen now. Again, as mentioned to you before, I'm going to discuss these these presentation slides briefly. Just the main ones I'd like you to understand. I'd like to bring the main topics from this presentation because the second week 2 material of module 1 is basically related to your marketing plan for your group project later on. Okay, all right. Okay, look, you may recall my story about setting up a firm. All right, we have a firm and we have the customers. Okay, well, look, my example is probably a little bit too oversimplified, because in real life we have more than just the customer that we need to deal with. Okay, we also will interact with someone else. In this instance, we could interact with anybody in the marketing environment. Okay, this is what we call as the marketing environment. Okay, look, if I can recommend you, okay, I believe at some point of time you will have your career progressing, and I keep my fingers crossed. Your manager will ask you to develop one marketing plan or one business plan. Okay, in real life, when we create a marketing plan or a business plan, we will always start with the marketing environment or business environment. That is the first starting point that we need to outline. Okay, so please make sure that we have a good handle of what we mean by marketing environment or business environment. Okay, although the executive summary comes the first, but actually we do that at the last. We actually analyze marketing environment in the first instance. Okay, all right. There are a few things in terms of marketing environment that I'd like to discuss with you. And some experts suggest that some marketing environmental forces are controllable, and some other people say uncontrollable or partially controllable. Okay, that reflects how they are going to respond to marketing environment. Okay, the people who believe that marketing environment is completely uncontrollable basically takes reactive approach, right? So they do research and they adjust the strategy. Okay, but the companies who takes proactive control basically believe that the marketing environment is partially uncontrollable, therefore partially controllable. Okay, so what they do is they research the environment and they try to influence the environment. How do they do that? They can stage media events, right, to form public opinion. They can hire lobbyists, right, to go to Canberra to talk to our member of parliaments, right, negotiate with our member of parliaments. Okay, they can finance the politicians that they believe will carry their interest more, for instance. Okay, and they can in fact take the actions further than that, like taking the government to court, for instance, if they believe the government will introduce something that is doing bad to their business. Okay, and so on and so forth. Right. So that's briefly about marketing environment. Right. Now let's have a look at the marketing environment. We have two types of marketing environment or business environment. The first one is micro, and the second one is macro environment. Okay, let's have a look at them one by one. There are 6 elements under micro. Okay, that includes, you may recall that we talk about the company and also the customers, right? We can expand it further. Okay, we also need to include the suppliers, marketing intermediaries, competitors, and publics. Okay, now the key point when you analyze micro environment is to understand how the company can create, communicate, deliver value effectively for the customers. So that is the key point that we need to understand when we analyze them. Okay, the company, for instance. Okay, the company consists of many people working for different departments. Right, everybody in the company will work hand in hand to create, communicate, deliver value. All right, remember our discussion in the first instance. Okay, so that's the company. All right, the CEO, marketing manager, sales manager, R&D manager, and so on and so forth, they will work hand in hand. Remember, that is the reason why the latest definition of the marketing published by the American Marketing Association basically focused more on the activity and set of processes, right, to create, communicate, deliver offerings that has value for the customers. Okay, so that's company. Okay, suppliers in here. Look, suppliers also have an important role in our business. Okay, in the olden days when I started my career in marketing more than 20 years ago, there was a buzzword, there was a corporate jargon: customer is king, customer is king. Okay, so when I met my customers, I joked to them, "Hey, I'm your king," right? Hail Eddie, hail Eddie. Okay, so it was the jargon at the time, by the way. So now, in today's business landscape, we work collaboratively with the suppliers because our suppliers help us meeting our promise for the customers. Okay, what can they do? Well, they can supply us with raw material, packaging material, and some business model also outsource their human resources to their suppliers. Okay. The next one is marketing intermediaries, or in other words, they are the middlemen. Okay, they help us promoting our business. They help us distributing our business and sharing the information with us. Right? They are the middlemen, or they are our distributors, retailers. Right? In some instances, we may work with the marketing intermediaries as well as our competitors. So kind of in bed with the enemies. Okay, if you think about Campbell Adams, for instance, or Unilever or Nestle, they work with Woolies and Coles, and Woolies and Coles also work with our competitors. Okay, and the next one is customer. Customer is critical. They are the focal point in value creation, value delivery, value communication. All right, they have needs, trends. All right, so that's customers. And competitors. Question: do we need to understand competitors?
Of course.
Yes, we do. Right? Why is that? Well, simple. Because in today's business landscape, the world out there is so competitive. Okay. So what we try to achieve is not only to create value, we want to create superior value. If you only create value, our competitors may outsmart us. Okay, there's reason why we want to understand our competitors. Okay, so what do we want to understand about our competitors? We want to understand everything in brief, right? But in your analysis, please don't mention everything, because if you mention everything, you're not telling me anything. Okay, so you need to specify. Okay, at least you want to explain what they are offering, what they're good at, right? Or strengths and weaknesses. Okay, all right. Well, I got questions from my other class. My product is a new product. It's a new one. We are the first company launching this product. That means I don't have competitors. As I know why. In today's business landscape, there is pretty good chance that your product will have competitors. Okay. What does it mean? Well, look. Ask yourself, if your product is not available in the market, what kind of products that the customers are using? They are your competitors. Okay? Think about iPad. Think about when Apple first launched iPad. Arguably, iPad is the first tablet computer. Okay? Before they launched iPad, who are their competitors? Well, they talk about netbook. They talk about laptop. They talk about PC. They are the competitors. Right? But now the product category, the tablet computer category has been developed. So they can look at Samsung. They can look at the other tablet computer brands as well. Okay. So again, very likely when you tell me that my product is a brand new product, this is the first one in this category, so that I don't have competitors, please think about it further. Ask yourself what kind of products that your competitors are using. They are your competitors. All right, because how do we define competitors? Well, we define competitors. We claim that the other company is our competitors because we are aiming at similar target market. We are deploying similar strategy. all right, fighting for the dollars, for the same dollars of the customers, right? Think in that context when we define our competitors, okay? Now, public is an interesting one. Public is not our target market, but public is important for us, right? Because they have interest in what we do, and we also have interest in what they do because they will affect the effectiveness of our company in creating, communicating, and delivering value for customers. Okay. Now, think about this. Look, if you may recall that some people, some not-for-profit organization, may organize a campaign against products such as Coke, for instance, because Coke has been accused of spreading diabetes and sugar. Okay, that's public. Okay, so that voice of public, okay, will affect the effectiveness of Coke in creating value for the customers, communicating value for the customers, and also delivering value for customers. So therefore, they got to manage it. Okay, they got to manage this public. Okay, right. So that's public. Okay, hopefully that gives you an idea in terms of everyone's role in here. Right. In brief, everyone's role in here will affect the company's effectiveness in creating, communicating, and delivering value for customers. Right, the next one is the macro environment. Okay, the macro environment consists of forces, and we label them as macro environment because they are the larger societal forces that may affect everybody. Who is everybody? Everybody is these guys. Everybody is the micro environment actors. All right. Therefore, these six these six factors, demographic, economics, natural, and so on and so forth, may affect the company, our supplier, our distributor, our customers, competitors, and also public. Okay. Therefore, we label them as the larger societal forces. Yeah. Right. Now let's have a look at them one by one. Okay. I'm going to skip that. They are the ones that we discussed before. Let's have a look at the macro environment. Okay, it consists of demographic, economic, and so on and so forth. Demographic is actually the study of human populations in terms of what? In terms of size, density, location, age, race, sex, and occupation. If you look at that, it is actually reminding us the census survey that the government normally conducts in 5 years. Okay, so they try to understand the trend of our demographic profile. Okay, now that helps us understanding the economic potential as well as results. Okay, all right. Now demographic, the thing that we want to do when we analyze the macro environment is basically two things. When we analyze macro environment, there are two things that I'd like you to look at. First, the changes, right? The changes of each of them. And the second one is the impact of the changes. In doing so, you can do some research to support with to substantiate your argument, okay? Just a bit of highlight in terms of demographic environment in Australia. We are, if you look at the Australian Bureau of Statistics, you'll find that our population is what we call as aging population, okay, where people at the age of young age are quite little as a proportion to people at the middle age, 35 to around 50. Okay, so that is the reason why we label them as we label our population as aging population. Okay, and in terms of population, in terms of demographic as well, the other highlight that you can also learn is about diversity. We have more and more diverse. Okay, what do we mean by diversity? Well, people from different background. In terms of what kind of different background that we talk about. It could be in terms of culture, language, ethnic, race, in terms of education level, in terms of political orientation, in terms of sexual orientation, like LGBT group, for instance, in terms of disabilities or non-disabilities, in terms of in terms of whether they are DINGS category or double income, no kids category, or SINGS category, single income, no kids, and so on and so forth. So they are part of the demographic diversity in our society. Okay. Now, what what is the implication to marketing with diverse background? Well, we need to think about adjusting our offering. Okay. Now, if you look at, if you refer to Sydney, for instance, in some areas of Sydney, like Bankstown, where we have a large Muslim community in Bankstown area, McDonald's has adjusted their offering to be halal offering. Okay, and some other fast food businesses also do the same thing. Okay, adjustment is one of the key things. Remember, in marketing, we say that we want to meet the customer's need. Okay, and meeting customers' need, we also need to look at who the customers are. Okay, right. So there's some highlights, guys, in terms of demographic environment. Okay, have a look at your text to have more detail of this topic. Okay? Economic environment. Economic is actually about purchase power and spending. Purchase pattern and spending power. Right. Economic forces will affect our customers in terms of their spending, their purchase pattern and spending power. Right. So these are some elements of economic forces that we want to look at. The economic growth, such as GDP, the inflation rate, interest rates, right? The RBA announces the interest rate on regular basis, and we look at the other major banks. We look at the 4 major banks in Australia, whether they would pass on the rate cuts onto the consumers or not. Okay, is that important? Yes, it is important for us to understand, because a lot of Australian consumers have mortgage. Okay, a lot of Australian consumers have mortgage. If the interest rate is cut, that means they are going to have larger, in theory, they are going to have a larger disposable income. Therefore, they can spend more on consumable products. Okay, tax level, GST. You may recall that last year in the parliament, they have been debating about increasing GST from 10% to 15%. Well, recently, I think that kind of debate has been diminishing recently, but if it does happen, increasing GST from 10 to 15, you can imagine how that will affect the consumption, right? And how they will affect your industry, the volume of your business. Okay. Government spending is another one that you want to look at from economic environment perspective. Okay, so look at data, guys. Look at economic data to help you substantiating your argument in this instance. Yeah. Right. Natural. There are 2 issues that I'd like to talk about in terms of natural environment. The first one is the shortage of natural resources. All right. What does it mean? If our business depends on natural resources like energy, and most of business depends on energy, okay, our business costs may be escalated because our raw material, our resources will be less and less. Okay, so that means the cost of getting these resources would be more expensive. Okay. So what does it mean? Well, our business cost will increase. If our business cost increases, that means we have 2 options: whether we absorb the costs, that means we take less profit, or we are going to pass the cost increase onto the consumers. That means we escalate the price. Okay, and you can imagine if we increase the price, what will happen to volume. Okay. Now, and the second thing is that the pollution issue in terms of natural environment, and if that issue has been brought quite loudly recently because of the environmental awareness of our society, and that gives pressure to the government. And you may recall that in year 2010, the Labour government introduced the carbon tax, and the Abbott government in year 2013 scrapped that policy, that taxation policy. Okay, so that is just to give you an example, the impact of natural environment. Okay. All right. The next one is technological environment. Technological environment here basically helps us about the advancement of technology, helps us with the product development, right? And also getting more opportunities. And one highlight I'd like to put up in here is the development of digital technology. With digital technology, companies have the opportunities to reach customers better and build engagement better. Okay? Political environment, basically two things in terms of political environment. The first one is the actors or the government, and the second one is the legislation. Okay, in terms of actors, you can look at whether the government is stable or not. Now, government stability also involves a number of things, not only about the government change that does not affect any bloodshed. Okay, it's not only about that, it's also about whether we change the government very often or not. You may recall that in the year 2007 until year 2013 in our show, we changed our prime minister quite often. Some business people have shouted about that. Well, we kind of they joke that we changed our prime minister like we changed our undies. Okay, so what does it mean? That may increase the risk of running business, because when we change the government, the business people say it's unclear in terms of the policies that the country will take. Okay, the second thing is about the legislation. You can research the legislation that the government is introducing. Okay. All right, so there are the major factors, and the last one here is the culture environment, which is basically about the beliefs, values. Okay, if you look at the beliefs, values, you can look at some highlights in here. Includes we are in pace of life value. For instance, a lot of people believe that, well, I live a busy lifestyle, for instance. Okay, customers' lifestyle is one of the things that we also want to look at in here. Okay. Right, I'm not going to discuss that more detail, and please go back to your text. Now, those 6 factors that we just discussed before, the cultural, technological, political, economic, demographic, and economic, can be summarized into what we call a step or steep or past or pastel model. Okay, they are the same thing. Okay, they are the same thing. Political, economic, social, culture, and technological. Okay, they are the same thing. Either this model or the other 6 elements that you analyze, they are the same thing. Okay. All right. Look, I just want to highlight to you guys that when you analyze environmental forces, the macro environmental forces, you show 2 things. First, changes. Okay, with this political factor that you analyze political changes in the legislation, EU legislation, and so on and so forth, and the impact. Okay. Now, the impact can only be 2 things, either positive or negative. It can't be both. It can't be neutral. Okay, positive impact actually goes under opportunities in our SWOT analysis. Negative impact goes under threats in our analysis. Okay, now if you look at SWOT analysis, it is actually a strategic fit analysis between the internal elements of the business and external elements of the business. Right. In other words, it is a question for the business whether we can manage we can manage our weaknesses to battle the opportunities and threats using our strengths. Okay, so in that case, what are strengths and weaknesses? Again, they are internal, they are not technical. All right, they are basically reflecting they are basically reflecting our assets, capability, or resources. What are the examples? It could be brand, it could be process, it could be location, it could be experience, it could be human resources, it could be financial resources, it could be access to customers, access to suppliers, knowledge, and so on and so forth. They are part of these strengths and weaknesses. Okay. Right. I'm not going to discuss that more details, guys. and and this is basically another model that people developed. What we are going to do next is basically to allow you to allocate a bit of time, as promised to you. If you have questions, so I guess this is perfect time for us to discuss your questions. Any questions so far, guys? No? All good? Okay. Look, if you don't have any questions, I just want to highlight again that next week is important for us. On Monday or before Monday, 6th of March, can you please upload your posting on the forum, okay? In 500 words. Let me just go back to the assessment task. All right, you're going to see my nice pond in there. You'll find some koi fish. Hopefully that is a bit relaxing. Before we end, we finish our session tonight. Where is my thingy-majiggy? Oh, there you go. This is one. Okay. So again, as a reminder, make sure you upload this. Okay. There are the 3 questions. I believe we have a lot of discussion in the first session about what we mean by marketing. Okay, so I believe we also discussed a number of concepts that help you to outline why marketing is important for your chosen product, service, company, or institution. And I trust that hopefully you have a new pair of glasses in looking at marketing compared to before you go through the learning material. So they are the ones that you need to outline. Okay. Do you have to reference? I received these questions a couple of times through emails. Yes, you do. Please insert your in-text and also in-text references and also reference list. All right. Remember, we got to deliver we got to meet the academic requirement. Okay, so yeah, they're the ones that I'd like to highlight to you before before we finish this session tonight. And if you haven't participated in the survey, I appreciate if you do that, because that will give you an idea in terms of what day that we need to organize for what day we need to meet for our next webinar. Okay. Any questions, guys? All good?
All good.
Brilliant. Look, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me tonight and appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to stop the, hang on a second, there is someone asking a question here. Oh, okay, thanks a lot, Char. I also appreciate your you joining me tonight, okay? And again, I'll see you in the next webinar. And if you have questions, send in the email. I can, so far, I can respond to all emails on the same day, if not the next day. Okay.
So when is supposed to be the webinar?
What was that?
When is supposed to be the next webinar?
Okay. I'm going to announce it hopefully on Monday, because I'm doing the survey. I'm going to look at that survey.
Cool. Perfect.
Brilliant. All right.